something which I've always noticed is that I play the worst poker when I'm thinking like, oh, now's the time to sit down and print.
What do you do when you see a really out of line showdown? Like, you probably just go, what an idiot, and move on.
There's DMs from me playing 25 NL saying I want to be number one in the world.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Seeking Balance podcast. This week we have Owen Messere, also known as Prodigy. It was great to sit down with Owen. We got to talk a lot about some of the ways he views the game and his ambition and what has driven him to the top. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. Before we jump in, just so you guys know, I do have a couple spots open for one-on-one coaching, so applications are available on my website if you're interested in that. I am sending out newsletters regularly now, so please sign up for that if you're interested in new things that I'll be doing. And my Discord is moving to a donation-based model, so please join that. And I look forward to seeing you there. Without further ado, here is Owen. Owen, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm sure people will be excited. I had Uri on a few weeks ago, and it was a great conversation.
Yeah. Always got some insights to share. It's very, very forthcoming with them as well.
Yeah. One of the insights was I did not know how to pronounce his name at all, so that was a fun.
Oh yeah, I've been pronouncing it wrong for years, and like I remember, like it's like Uri instead of Yuri, but like I say Yuri every time.
Or he told me the pronunciation is like Uri, like, but that's
Oh
like
right, so
like,
yeah, even that.
Yeah.
I've known him for years.
Well, that's a great jumping off point just to like hear a bit of your story, though. You said you've known Uri for years. Like, how did you guys meet? Like, what was the beginning of that relationship?
So like I was playing like 5-10 online. I think I was playing 5-10 online was my main stake at the time. And I was like complete lone wolf up until that point. I think I've been pro for about somewhere like a year to 18 months. I'd kind of shot up in stakes, but then like 1K was like the first place where I was having some trouble, and so I was taking some shots at 5K, which really hadn't gone very well at all. They kind of gone pretty much as badly as they could have. So I just wanted, like basically every other time I'd had like a downswing, even when like shot taking and moving up stakes up to that point, it had been quite short, and I'd not really had like any self-doubt afterwards. I'd just been like, I'd just taken a shot and then it hadn't gone well, but I'd been like, I'll be back for sure. But then that was the first time I was actually like, am I going to be able to crack this? And so I started looking around for some coaches. I saw that Uri he'd coached like. I'd seen bits of his like YouTube channel, and I also seen like tons of the people he coached. He came very highly recommended. He was actually recommended him by one of the BitB coaches, funnily enough, because I didn't really want to do I didn't want to commit to a CFP, and they were like, okay, and they were like high stakes coaches at the time who were doing hourly coaching. They were like, Uri's like the best one around. So I got a coaching session with him, it was like I booked an hour, and I ended up like paying for an hour, but we were just like chatting poker for like 3 hours or something. Just like just because we like went over a video which I'd made, and then I think we got through some of it. He'd made some notes on some hands, and we were just like talking about them, but then like afterwards we were just like we were just like just chatting poker for ages after, and he was like, well, he knew I was mostly looking for hourly coaching, but he's like, well, just take a look at the CFP, like come to a few sessions. If you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. But he was basically like, this is the deal if you're interested. And they had like, it was funnily enough that despite the fact that Guerilla has like some of the best results out there, it was also like it was a lot cheaper than the other CFPs. Like I'd always been offered like 50-50 splits, and then Guerilla was like it was like 30% for like it was 30% at first, and then it was like going down over time, and I was like. It's like, wait, what? Like, I was supposed to, I thought I was supposed to sign on dotted line for like half my income for like the next 2 years, and they were like, no, 1 year contract, and then you stick around. I was like, okay, that sounds great. Yeah, and I went to some coaching sessions, and it was like the most. Like, I went to a coaching session with Grindcore Bart, and it was like the most meticulous, like, like poker coaching I'd ever seen. It was like he'd clearly like prepped it like so precisely, and I just remember it was just like going over some spot in like a free bet pot, and he's like going over certain boards, but like there was no like there was no going, oh, this is sort of vaguely how we played this type of board or anything. It was like this is what happens on this board. You change one card on it. Here's the change, and then he like was plotting things on a graph, and he was like, look, as we change these side cards, you can see like this pattern, and it's like oh right, like when there's it's like when there's a 5 on the board, it's like the free better has ace 5 suited and 6-5 suited, so you see like this slight increase in c bet frequency, which like falls off on like a 4 or a 6 as like just the side card. And I'd never even thought about poker like that. I just in my head it was like, oh, we're just in some free bet pot, and like Jack 10 deuce and Jack 10 5 were like the same board, and like yeah, like the and then it was just kind of mind blowing to go into that session and be like, well, oh wait, like you can if you're able to draw these patterns across like with precision about why they're happening, because I'd always hated stuff like aggregate reports and just trying to look at like the data like that. But the way he was presenting things as being like, it was strictly coming back to like hand classes, and there were like it was so devoid of abstractions almost. Yeah, it was so precise that then it meant that because it started from such a high level of precision, we then went back to when you then turn it into a heuristic, the heuristics then were like more meaningful, and you were able to spot the exceptions, because like you knew why it existed. You hadn't like it wasn't like picking out something vague and blurry. It was like yeah, it just felt so much more precise. I was so impressed. So yeah, I think basically after the first session I was like, okay, yeah, I'll stick around. I'll stick around in Guerilla. And yeah, just been working with Uri, like Brack, Duty, and Bart ever since.
Nice. That session sounds both confidence inspiring, but potentially overwhelming as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also like Guerilla has always been like historically has been very targeted towards like players who are at the level I was at. They're like on like the high end of 5-10 or playing 10-20, trying to crack nosebleeds has been the typical applicants that they've been taking. And like a few who are playing a bit lower, who like were showing like potential for various reasons. But like that's typically what they've been pitched at. And I think I just hadn't really seen a coaching session like that. I've been very used to like a lot of the stuff you get on if you sign up to a training site, most of the coaches are playing 500 an hour, which means that they can only really do a session for. I mean, honestly, you shouldn't really even be coaching someone one stake below you. You should be, the in order to properly coach someone, they should be like 2 or 3 below you. So then even like the guys who are like playing like 1K on those sites, it's like if you're playing 500, it's it's hard to get like tons of value out of that. But then yeah, so I just hadn't seen that like level of coaching before, and then like working at Guerilla, and it was like, I mean, well, like Bart and Uri, they're like, they don't really, they don't play anymore. I mean, they sort of play for fun, or just to stay sharp. They don't really play, but they like have played those stakes in the past. But then like, working with like Barack and Duty and Petter and various others who are like, Barack's like the biggest online winner of the past 5 years or something. So it's And if you want to learn how to beat high stakes, there's like a certain and yeah, those guys just weren't really available on the on those training sites. So yeah, the level being like that much of a step above, it was like kind of shocking to me at first, but then yeah, it kind of it makes sense about why they were like who they were pitching.
Do you view that level of precision as necessary for beating high stakes?
Um,
Let's say
there's
let's say above 2K.
yeah, it's a difference between like you can have a win rate without being super precise, but it's like if you want to have like a really crushing win rate, like I think there's a lot of guys playing at high stakes who are mostly reliant on instincts, and like, you can also you can even see that within Guerilla, like Barack is the guy he much more wants to use his like instincts and have like a sort of more like he's more trying to work out how someone's thinking than having that sort of like solver level precision. And I say this like Gorilla's like inherently a very exploitative stable. It's more like using that like it's using the understanding of why those things happen. So you start from something very precise, and then you can use it in a very practical way. Like we're not really obsessed with like hitting that kind of theory level of accuracy. At the same time, when I'm coaching people, I do drill it into their heads sometimes. I'm just like, if you don't know what your range is here, then you can't exploit properly. Like you can't. You need to be able to. I often tell people you have to be able to see your range on the back of your eyelids. Like especially if it's in a common spot. If you're in some weird Wild West spot, you're gonna have to like make a bunch of like. You're gonna have to like make thing make things sort of blurry around the edges just to be able to like cope with it and come up with a reasonable decision. But if you're just like I don't know, if you just like check call the flop, the turn goes check and you get to the river, you like have to know like exactly what you have and exactly what they can get there with. And I think that's the kind of thing where it's like but and then like and then well I think of it as like first principles level exploiting. If you know what someone's supposed to have, and then you can remove specific combos and be like, or like add specific combos, be like, oh okay, like this guy is, you can take like a really simple level one, like this guy like just bets way too many draws on the turn, and then you get into a river spot and it's like, oh a bunch of draws come in, and you're like, typically that's kind of a sort of defensive, like, oh, maybe he hit, maybe he didn't, like, the money goes in a bit slowly, check raises, bet free bets, whatever. You don't just pile money in. But if you're up against a guy who bets like all his draws on the turn, then it's like, there's like, no, I can have those draws, I can check call them, and he can't. So this spot plays very differently. And but yeah, so if you understand why things work from like the first principles level, and then you just take away like one part of that reasoning chain, and then like follow it again with that one step missing, and it's like you just get to a completely different way of playing a spot. And that's that's how I tend to like try and think about things more so than rather just trying to hit an insanely high level of accuracy. It's more like it's as long you start by going deep down the rabbit hole so that you know like where it leads and why it leads there, but then oftentimes the answers in a practical perspective, like if you know things to that detail, like then when it comes to practical, like the answers will actually feel quite simple. I remember being like so impressed learning from Barack when I just had like a live play of me like playing 5K, and he was like reviewing it, and every single decision sounded so simple for him, and it still does to this day. Like I think I've quite like a convoluted and like sort of quite exhaustive thought process. I'm really trying to like I'm trying to be like very very rigorous, whereas he has like he has this ability to just like skip to the good bit, it's really hard to teach the instinct to like look at a spot and immediately be like, oh yeah, this was the crux of the hand, like this specific moment right here just informs like the whole rest of the way we're going to play. And he can do that so cleanly, and like I'm so jealous about it because yeah, just talking to him, poker just seems so easy. It's like everyone else is working so hard out there, and like I don't know if he knows how easy he has it. I tell him, but I'm not sure he believes me.
Yeah, I mean this piece of like building this really robust model of the game, though, is kind of how what speaks to me is like the precision that you're talking about. It's like you have this really robust model and the felt sense of it, and then you move one thing, and your instinct is like is what stands out as like that thing that moved shifts what we do, right? Like all these like the signal through the noise really cuts through.
Yeah, because it's also fragile. Like, if a solver says like, oh, you have to bet 30% and check 70%, like, I mean, what that's really saying is there's this imaginary scales saying like both of these options, like every single factor we put on each side of the scales adds up to perfectly the same. Like, if you take one thing off one side of the scales, it's not like the scales moves a little bit, like it just completely tips. And so then if someone's like really like if someone knows all the factors and then can just remove one or like add one at very high confidence, then the whole thing just sounds like it just suddenly becomes like really like yeah, it becomes really, really clear. And I think a lot of people like they don't think it they can sort of understand that, but they haven't necessarily internalized that that's actually what's happening in a decision. Um,
Yeah, and I think that knowledge makes you go hunting for the thing that has moved, right? Like when you're in a game, I view myself as a less precise player when I play and more like just what is the thing that I'm most concerned with? Like what is, but I think that sense, there was I had a phase of life of being very like more rigorous. And I think when you know that things can just shift so much, it just primes you to constantly be looking for that thing. I'm curious your thoughts on this. I don't want to spend, this is starting to sound a lot like a conversation I had with Uri, so I don't want to repeat it too much, but I'm curious your thoughts on just like running. This is also why I favor a kind of like test and see what happens kind of approach, where it's like I feel like this is what's happening, and like no matter how this hand goes, I'm going to learn whether or not that's true. Whereas I feel like a lot of people are preoccupied with like doing the thing they think is good and not like trying to find where the scales are out of balance in people. What does that
yeah,
bring to mind for you?
I think sometimes people can be paralyzed by like they're like searching for certainty in. I mean, like this can mean a lot of things, but like in poker's like a microcosm of this, where if you want to only do good plays when you're certain of them, okay, sure you'll make a lot less mistakes, but you're like the ceiling which you're playing at is so much lower. And also something which I often say to people, which I think people like they hate hearing because they agree with it, but it's not advice they're happy to follow, is that you've just got to go out there and like you've got to go out there and make enough mistakes to develop the feel for what a mistake feels like. You've got to go out there and like try to hunt some stuff down and get it wrong, and then look back on it afterward. Well, yeah, I mean, and this is the key step, which stops a lot of people improving because they skip this. is then when it goes disastrously wrong, you don't want to think to yourself like, oh, like I can see this is wrong now and just move on. Like you want to work out why it's wrong, but you can also there's also another like sort of meta stage to it of being like, okay, what made me make this mistake? Like what was the like what exactly happened in game that like meant that I got to an answer that I can now identify I shouldn't have. Um, like that, there's lots of things which can happen. Sometimes you'll have like a bunch of high stress decisions happening at once, and then like all of them just become a bit hazy around the edges. Such is the nature of online poker. But there can also be things, like everyone has emotional biases. There can be like lots of stuff like coming up in the session, like giving too much weight to a certain factor, and then afterwards you might be like, oh yeah, like I just thought too much about this, but you might not realize it's a pattern. Like sometimes like like look, all of us have like internal biases, and if you just kind of write them off as like, oh yeah, I made this mistake, like I thought the guy was running a bluff for this reason, but then like you always think they're running a bluff for that reason, and it's never right. It's like
Yeah.
you're just consistent. Like yeah, actually a big problem I had when I first started with Guerilla was I would just like uh I would just sort of what project my own thought process, because I was like I was always like especially back then I was quite spewy. I was like I feel like
And so
now
you think
it's
everyone's bluffing in every spot? Like
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, especially a high stakes reg because like because basically like I got to like 1K within like I can't yeah like a year 18 months or something like that. So I'd moved up in stakes pretty fast, and always the way I'd moved up in stakes whenever I'd had trouble getting up in stakes was just finding more bluffs. Like
Right.
I did not know I did
Yeah.
not know how to play a value hand until 5K now. I swear. Like I had no precision or technical game. I just had like a really really aggressive triple barrel, and it was just hard to fucking deal with. like
Yeah.
um and so yeah, that was my whole thing. And then I'd be going up in stakes, and they would just be like, "Oh, Owen, like everything's got there, and you still call down this net." And I was just like, "Everything's got there, so he'd bluff, obviously." Like, it's
Which
so much fun.
there's something to that, but yeah, I know what you
Yeah,
mean
yeah,
though. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like,
Yeah.
then they just be like, "Dude, he doesn't have these combos in his
Yeah.
range."
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
He didn't barrel turn with them. He
yeah,
didn't, so he doesn't get there to river with
he
it.
folded them pre because he knows you're a station. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh shit, you guys are onto something.
Yeah. It's funny
Yeah,
because I think that we don't have to linger on this point, but I do find most spewy people are station. I'm a spewy
yeah, yeah.
station. You know, like I'm. You
It's
know, it's hard to combat. Like, uh, but the thing that you're pointing to, which I think is really worth highlighting, and this is why I always, because you're saying like the step most people skip is why did I make that mistake? I actually view that as that step gets skipped because the answer for most people is just way too hard to find. And I view it as like an in-game problem of like you're not, when you play the game in a what I call like a performative way, like I'm trying to perform good decisions. If you have this like network of decisioning that comes together to what you think is a good decision, and it could be any one of those things, and that's way harder to like come to a decision about what was wrong. When you play the game in a form a hypothesis and run an experiment kind of way, and it is so much easier to dial in on why I made this decision, you know? So it's so much easier to be like, well, I called here because I thought they would like, I bet flop. I thought they're going to float too much. And then I thought they're going to barrel off too much. Like I'm against this whale. And so like, I have a specific kind of hand I'm expecting to see at showdown, right? Like I have a specific, and if I call, I know what confirms my hypothesis or not, right? Like I have this idea. And I don't think one of the things I brought up with, I can't remember who, but I think there was a certain thought processes get stigmatized within poker, and I think people then like the community ditches them. And I think one of them was like calling for information, like you know what I'm saying
yeah,
though.
yeah,
And
yeah.
but there's this
There's a meme
point.
now.
I have students all the time though who are like they have this really clear hypothesis of like the spot will either be under bluffed and I expect these kinds of hands, or it'll be over bluffed and I expect these kinds of hands. And it's like, well, you play this guy all the time. Like you have a really good hypothesis to take to this river and see which one it is. And I think if people had questions and hypotheses they were running in real time more often, the post hand thing of like, why did I make that mistake? But people hate being like, I think it's this calling and seeing evidence of the opposite. But that's actually like the most valuable thing that can happen is like, oh, okay, that I just was wrong. Like I made this decision. I was just wrong. I got direct feedback and I can just adjust now. Hey guys, just cutting in real quick to say that my Discord is now going to a donation-based model. So it will be open to everybody. We do weekly guided meditations in that. There's a community of people. We talk about all kinds of issues that come up, as well as there are monthly seminar topics on things like performance and relationships and all types of topics that I find interesting and that I think will help you become the best that you can and accomplish everything you want in life. So if you're interested in that community, link will be below.
Something which I've always noticed is that I play the worst poker when I'm thinking like, oh, now's the time to sit down and print. Rather, it's like, whenever I look at my strategies, a fixed thing. And it's like, yeah, I've done so much work on it. Now, now we're at the spot where we just sit down and watch the money roll in, compared to being like, having a more like growth mindset. Or it's also just like, being ambitious, of being like, okay, I can win here, but I can win for more. And then always having that attitude makes me like much more like, yeah, much more likely to make good decisions.
Yeah, and I think that's hard. You seem like a naturally ambitious person. I think for lots of people, tapping into that like kind of self belief can be difficult. But even if you can't do that, I think just having like just being in the present moment, like what is the situation and what's a piece of information I can try to learn in this hand right now? Like what's a thing I can try to learn about my opponent's strategy? And I think most people are not in that headspace at all. Like they're just in this is what I think is good. Let me just do what is good here. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite like, it's safe to just do things which can be checked by the solver, rather
Yeah.
than do things where you have to, you have to like self evaluate and like, be reflective about your plays.
It's funny because the people who are like checking the solver the most also though are the ones who are I have found are the most willing to give the most generous possible interpretations to when a solver says they're wrong, right? Like they're like the solver
man.
says they're punting for like 20% of the pot, and they're like, yeah, but does he really? And
I'm
I'm
a little bit guilty of this one. I mean, there's like, for a while there, people definitely. I got a reputation for copium node locks. They were being called. I was just like, listen. It does like. Obviously, we both know this is wrong. However, and then there'll be like a long spiel, and what I finally realized, which like kind of got me out of the habit of this, like I'll still do stuff which is pretty out there, but I sort of realized at a certain point that like you can have like a very nice, pretty tower of assumptions where like if they all stack together, then yeah, it's wonderful and your play makes sense. But those assumptions that I was making was often I was assigning them like 100% certainty value, and this tower was a bit more like a house of cards, and it was just really easy to. Well, it's also like, I mean, once you start thinking about it, if you have two stacking assumptions where they're both 70%, like that feels like something you have a decent confidence in, but then it's like, oh well, now I have a 49% play. Like I'm actually below the threshold to even take a mix, like on these assumptions, let alone like a wildly out of line hand, and then you can have more than that. And I think that's one of the problems. Like it's like the seeking certainty thing. But you can mathematically model uncertainty. I mean, obviously, it's kind of hard in a hand to go, oh well, this is a 90% assumption, and then this one's like an 80, and then like this one's an 80 as well, and then you have them up, and you're like, oh, just about. Like I can make this play. You have to, yeah, you obviously have to do it like more heuristically than that. But yeah, I think once you're like, once you're happy with the idea that like, you're just starting from like, I have a feeling the guy's doing it, and you're trying to iterate towards actually having like a dead to rights read. And then when you have that sort of like internal model, and then you realize in a certain spot you're like, okay, I actually have like, I have a few dead to rights reads coming together here. Like I actually can get super out of line, and I'm not gonna, like I'm gonna get super out of line, and then if it goes wrong, I'm not even I'm not even gonna ask people if I could justify it, because I know, I'm so like I have enough confidence in all these things, because I have been paying enough attention, like using the showdowns that you get, because like I feel like a lot of people just like throw away gold all the time. Like people will tell you so much about how they think about the game, um, especially like there's a certain type of player that has absolutely no desire to play solid poker at all, and then, and it's like, uh, like Steffi's kind of like this, where it's like he just doesn't want to play a hand standardly. And I feel like it was working for a while, but like now people are sort of accurate enough that you will sometimes have to play normal poker. But then there's a type of player who you play against. They're often Russian, um, who, who will like every hand they'll just tell you exactly what they think of you. It's like that they'll just like range call or range fold, and they'll like range bluff you in all these spots, and you just get so much information. So I always tell people, if you can play Russians heads up, it's great. You're, like it's an amazing coaching session. Like if you can play Russian heads up, by the end of it, you'll just be like, wow, like maybe well, at least this guy very strongly thinks I'm over bluffing my triple barrels or something. And then you get to you can actually get a lot from that. Yeah, like a lot of like a lot of people just sort of let this stuff go, and that they just see a mistake and they're like, oh yeah, like look, he clearly fucked up. This is like a this is a mistake he made, and just not seeing like you're getting so much info, and then it's like it allows you to. I mean, it just makes the poker more fun. If someone's playing that wildly, and you've got so much info, it means you can play like really wildly as well. And I just think the game's like so much more fun like that when you're not playing in an insular way.
Yeah, and I think people have a hard time because this is another I think stigma that another idea that got stigmatized with the advent of solvers, but it was using showdowns, like because it's like, oh, it's result oriented, like, oh, they ran this one, oh, like, but like showdowns mean a lot about how people are viewing the spot, especially particular showdowns, right? Like a hand that is like really outside. I was talking with Kevin Rabichow on a podcast earlier, and I was like, if you check back flop and you start getting bluffed at with like, let's say the board is like king 5-2 or something, and like it goes check somehow, but like you start getting bluffed at with queen highs by your opponent, like on the turn from out of it, like you just know they don't understand showdown value. Like they just like like there's just certain showdowns that stand out so much that I'm speaking specifically in heads up, sorry, but yeah, but like. I think that goes back to the priming question of like, I think a lot of people would recognize showdowns more if they were asking themselves questions in game more often. Like, what do I expect to see? And what is a meaningless showdown? What is just like super standard? What is not? And like, what does it mean if I just see a very non-standard showdown,
I think people's like, it just sort of comes from, like honestly, I think a lot of people have too long-term a view of the game. I was thinking about this more recently. They're just like, as long as I play closer to the solver than this guy over the next 100,000 hands, I win. And it's like okay, well, you don't play poker 100,000 hands at a time. You play poker one hand at a time. Um, and yeah, I mean, like I've often found in heads-up matches that some of the most relaxing ones, not necessarily the highest win rate, but the ones where you can consistently sit down and like expect to have like a good session where you feel like you outplayed them, are against the guys who are playing the safest, because they have to walk a tightrope. Like they get so like they can make so few mistakes in order to do it. And I've fallen into this trap like a few times. I mean, I definitely fell into this when I was playing against Linus. I was very much like I was like Jesus Christ, playing Linus, can't make a mistake because he's not going to make a mistake. It's like it's like, okay, one, obviously he's human, but also it's like at that point you sort of stop really posing problems for people. And I was just I was looking back on that and I was like, oh, I wasn't. I mean, I didn't get killed by any means, and probably gonna pick it up again someday. But yeah, I was just thinking like I've just played so like I don't know, such such like neutered poker. Like that was like it was. It's like you have to like pose problems to people.
Well, it's also a point because like you're saying, I think people who are walking that tightrope, like you said, they're also the people who are least likely to jump on your mistakes, right? Like they're all in their own head, like about if what they're doing is right. So you're saying it's relaxing. It's like, yeah, because I'm not playing a person who's paying any attention to what I'm doing. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I mean, like before his fall from grace, it was like the whole Steffi thing where um he was like he was essentially giving people a win rate with the amount of EV mistakes he was making, and then just trying to make it back with like tactics was how I thought about them. Because I think about like the difference between poker and chess, and chess is the kind of game where like people coming up through the rank, like um, I'm like not a master or anything, but like I'm pretty good. And you can get to a decent level. You can get to around 2000 just by being good tactically, just like knowing all these like short combos to suddenly just like swing the game and win. But the difference between like the difference between like even like international masters or like regular GMs and the world champions and like all the people up there is like their understanding of like strategy and like long term plays. And I kind of think poker is the opposite. And I feel like everyone sells the lie. Like everyone sells this idea that it's about like strategy. Um, and it's like, and like, okay, I think in poker it's the different. It's like if you have like a really solid strategy, it gets you to a certain level. But then I was like, what really separates the top guys apart? And it's like they have this ability to pounce on you in one hand and just make this massive EV swing that just makes like all the grinding up until that point um like very very minor by comparison. And so if they can if they can find like if you can find those moments, then you can get away with a strategy which might be like slightly bleeding. Like I remember like especially playing Davey a bunch heads up. Like I'm like a lot more studied than Davey in heads up. But like he was, every time playing him, there are always you're always in danger of like just getting like hard outplayed in some random hand which starts off quite innocuously, and then like he finds something, um, and then it's like okay, well, this like baseline win rate based on like based on my accuracy, like what does it really mean? So I've come much more around to the idea that like the strategy is what that's what you do just to that's like it's your baseline because you don't want to be you don't want to be like the crazy Russians who are like give you like tons of info every single hand. So it's fine to be able to play, it's fine to have like a baseline which is mostly just playing accurately, but I think the real thing which separates people is like their ability to their ability to make that big deviation in the moments like when the stars align and like not let those moments slip by.
And then dealing with it when you're just wrong, right? Like that's a big skill. Like making some big play that just was not right. Like you were just out of your mind. And then like and then just moving on with your life, just being like, well, oops.
Yeah. I mean, also you can be like you can be right and lose obviously, but there's also things where it's like there are also plays where I'm sort of kind of forgiving in myself where it's like I got I had like 90% of the puzzle pieces I needed, and then I missed the one last thing. But up until that moment, it was really clean, and so I kind of blundered. But it was like the thought process was actually pretty good. It's just it's often the kind of thing which happens if you haven't played someone for like quite a long time, and then they come back and you're like reading through the notes, and then like oh yeah he does this, and it's like oh this what, and then you just like, oh wait, but there's some like I don't know, there's some other factor which I miss. Um, so, but yeah, like also just having the mental resilience to be like, like mistakes are the like mistakes in like getting stacked and blundering are occupational hazard.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that draws an interesting distinction between like your process and your decision, which I think your decision, like what you actually do, the action you actually took, I think is worth way less focus than like what was your process that led you there. But the other thing that you were talking about with people who are willing to like jump on these spots, that I mean, that really what enables you to do that though is your understanding of the things that you're talking about, like the really precise things. One thing that got left out, I feel like, of your discussion about the stacking assumptions, because obviously you stack assumptions, you multiply these probabilities of being true all by each other. The more you have, the worse they are. But the other thing that I think some people overlook too is like how close a decision is this actually, and like because some decisions that are like quite close, you need very little confidence to like change things. But then you also have some people who have no clue how standard, if you will, a certain decision is, and they're like not doing certain things based on their assumptions. But it's like, dude, you need like so much reason to believe this person's out of line in this direction to swing this decision in a different direction, you know? All right, guys, just jumping in real quick to say that I do have a couple spots open for one-on-one coaching. Applications are available on my website and spots are limited. I'm only working with 5 people at a time right now, and it does require a 6-month commitment. But over that 6 months, we'll get into anything that feels like it's been getting in your way, accomplishing the stakes you want to reach in poker. If you have dreams of accomplishing anything else outside of poker, or anything that's in your personal life that you've been struggling to tackle, we can get into all of that. So if you're interested in working with someone one-on-one, again, applications are available on my website.
Yeah, well, that yes, and it's also it it also relates to how much information you're communicating. Like if you're playing, if you're playing like a very like high level player who's gonna be paying attention to what you're doing, um, if you make a adjustment which is like, okay, so say you have an adjustment which is making you like 5 BB a BV. If you take the hand which is like a 4.9 BB adjustment, like, that's how much it's losing in theory. It's like, okay, I'm making 0.1 BB with this, but like they're paying attention. They can see, they can see that you've made that big an adjustment, so they know, okay, he thinks in this spot like I'm at least 5 BB out of line. And so that's, there's lots of reasons. I mean, obviously, it relates to the pot size, so the numbers are kind of arbitrary. But like, there's lots of reasons. Like a mix essentially communicates nothing. And like, there's lots of reasons someone can make small deviations, and it's often going to be like, it's going to be quite subtle. It's going to be like fairly lost in the hand. Um, people will have to go quite far. Also, sometimes they'll just get misinformation because like, we're not perfect. So like, I'll see a hand which is like a 2 BB deviation and think it's a mix and RNG it, and then realize afterwards I was just inaccurate. Whereas like there are certain hands where, if you're playing high stakes player, it's like we both know that's a mistake and it's a big one, and you did it anyway. Like so like he clearly like has a very strong assumptions about like what is going on in this spot, and it's sort of like it should give you alarm bells when like when these like high level players get like that far out of line.
Yeah. But you're also talking about like these environments where you and the person you're playing against are people who more or less like have their hands on the dials of their strategies, if you will. And that is not the average poker player.
Yeah.
Right? Right? So like,
yeah,
like, because you're talking, because like you can be playing against people who they see it and they think that's a huge mistake, and then they have nothing to do with that information. Like they don't even know what it says about the assumptions about their strategy. Like you know what I'm saying? Like the amount of vagueness that even some quite competent poker players play with in their strategies is like extreme.
Yeah,
And
especially in like the current environment where there's like lots of the high stakes games now are like Squid Game or like big antes. And like even once these games become more standard, they're just inherently like chaotic. Like Squid Game could be out for 30 years and people still won't know what the preflop ranges are in a certain spot. Like the game's just too vast. Like there's too many things at play. So it's like you're starting from a level of vagueness early on. So yeah, there's like there's a lot of room to there's a lot of room to make adjustments around that. But yeah, like a lot of time people would just see hands and just like think they're, just like think someone's making a mistake for whatever ego reasons that they have. Or like, the classic one is like they see a player who's like fairly competent and solid, and then like they see the guy make a big mistake, and then they just go, oh, look how bad this guy is. It's like, well, not really. Like, guy doesn't often do this, and he did it specifically versus you in like this spot, and just because you had like, I don't know, some solver bluff into their like pure fold, which they called, like you're just like, oh well, like clearly over 100,000 pounds, I get to realize my like EV. No, it's like you probably gave something away, like the and there's like a like massive amount of things that you could have given away.
Yeah, that's happened. I tell this all the time when working with people and they're like scared to run an exploit or something, and I'm like, what do you do when you see a really out of line showdown? I'm like, you probably just go, what an idiot, and move on. Like, and so I'm like, it's weird because like, yeah, some people you have to be careful, some people are like considerate about it, but like I find the ecosystem of extremely thinking, careful poker players who are really rigorous and again have the dials on their strategy pretty small. Like that's a pretty small pool of people. Like, yeah, like you just get out there, dude, and just live your best life. Like have fun. Like,
yeah, I think is honestly maybe the way to pitch it to people is just like poker will be so much more fun for you playing like this. Like if you're sitting there like filled with anxiety, just being like, no, I must keep the ceiling on my opponent's EV as low as possible, and I will like grind up. Like, do you know how much stress that must be? Do you know, if they saw how much fun I have playing poker, like sometimes people will get confused and they're like I'll just be like, there'll be no action for like, there'll be no action at high stakes for a while, and I'll just open up a bunch of like 10, 20 tables and just be like playing them. I was like, I don't know. I just want to like, I want to like fuck around. I want to try and outplay some people.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy this game. This game is it's a lot of fun. Yeah, there's a reason I'm been like playing so much.
I want to kind of pivot because one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, which was actually the main thing I wanted to talk to you about, and we got carried away, but that's always what happens here. I wanted to ask about, so like you ask many people right now who they think is like one, like possibly the best like player in the world. You are on some people's mouths. Like they're going to say Prodigy. I don't know. A lot of people are referencing that. I just want to get your, like, what is that like?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I feel like I'm like the roughly like the perfect level of famous, as in I'm never ever recognized outside of a poker setting ever. But then like if I go to like a live game and someone's like kind of a nerd about poker, they'll be like, "Oh, it's you!" Like, and they'll like know the screen name, but not my actual name. Just like I'm like, "You're Prodigy, right?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, I know Owen,
Yeah.
by the way." And like,
Yeah.
and then they'll be like, they're like showing me hands or like asking me like literally. I was at a live game this weekend, and some guy like he ran some insane bluff on me, and I was like super fucking drunk, and I was like literally sat there just like, it's like, here's how I lose in live games. I get drunk, and then my ego gets involved, and then I make a stupid fucking call. And I was like, I have no other thoughts in my brain right now except for we're not going to repeat that. And then I fold, and then he tables the fucking bluff. Of course, I'm like, this is how I can't. This is how I'm never ever getting away from this. And then he asked to take a selfie with me with the bluff, and I'm just like, okay, fine. And I was like, I told my girlfriend about it, and she was just like, yeah, it makes you sound like you're like a hunting trophy. Like, they've hunted down the Prodigy.
That's not far off. Probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite fun though. I I always appreciate a good suicidal bluff. So it's good fun. All good fun of the game.
When you were getting started in poker, was that like a clear ambition of yours? Was like, I want to be considered one of the best in this game?
Oh yeah, man. There's DMs from me playing 25 NL saying I want to be number one in the world. Like there's like way back, like, and then like there's someone who I still chat to from back then who was like, yeah, I went through the start of our messaging history, and he's just like, I remember you saying that at some point, and he's like looked back to how early it was, because he's like, I must have been playing like at least 500 Zoom or something. It's like, no, like 25 Zoom. I was just like commenting on people's hands on like the Run It Once forums, and then like, yeah, and then and just like got to messaging guy, and he's just like, it's like, why are you playing 25 and L? You seem like you seem pretty fucking good. Like I was like coaching people playing higher, like coaching, but you know what I mean, like talking about the hands. I was just like, well, hopefully I won't be playing it for long. And then like, yeah, I was, yeah.
Hey guys, just so you guys know, it does take a lot to produce this content for you. So if you appreciate what I do here at the channel, I would really love if you guys could both like and subscribe and share this content with anybody that you think might appreciate it. As well as that, there's a link below for donations. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, donating to the channel is a great way to do it. So if that's something you're interested in, please do so below. What's interesting is like, what do you make of that ambition and that desire for yourself when, okay, so like myself, I coach. If someone shows up on my doorstep as a coach and I'm like, well, what are your goals? What are your ambitions? What are you trying to do? And they're like, I just want to be the best. I typically take that as a sign as like, you're not that serious. Like, yeah, right? Yeah. Like it just
a lot of people did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was kind of funny as well explaining to people that I wasn't really motivated by money. I was like, they're like, especially, the year leading up to the World Championships. Of course, no one knew it was going to happen. It sort of like came about quite suddenly. But like, I'd just been like, there'd be like a bunch of tables running on GG with fish, and I'd be playing like 3-handed reg battles on ACR all day, like just like sitting there, and they're like, what are you fucking doing? I was like, this is so much more fun. So I was, I think, I was always just, very, I don't know, it's like very driven by it. I feel like once it got, I'm not like that with most things. And that's why I was like, oh shit! Like I found this one thing. Like we're going to see this through to the end. No, it's always hard to say in others. I don't think many people like. I guess it would be weird to say it to me now. Like as I'm like taking coaching applicants, it's like, yeah, I'm coming for the number 1 title. Like, good luck. Coming for you. Like, okay. But no, I do always appreciate. I feel like a certain level of delusion, can be helpful as long as you like. I was kind of aware that what I was expecting was a bit ridiculous, and I remember thinking to myself, like, I was like, well, if you're aiming to like climb the mountain that high, there are a lot of levels you could get to, which are going to feel disappointing. And I sort of like mentally prepared myself for that a little bit. I was like, because like even if I was just like grinding like 5k an hour, like a 2BB win rate, which is like, fucking fantastic, right? Like that's like playing cards for a living, like making plenty of money. I was like, I was still gonna be tilted if that was how things ended up. So I was like, I don't know, I've just gotta keep on pushing it. But yeah, I think that's also, what stops you stopping, right? Like I think like that there are some people who I see around me who could do with like a little bit more delusion. It's like they're like really talented in like a bunch of different ways, but they're like, I don't know. I mean, to be fair, they seem very at peace. Like they don't have this they have this monkey on their back saying, "Climb the ladder, go higher." But
yeah, well, I mean, everyone has different goals, and I think one of the things that matters is like I actually don't think it's delusion. It's actually honesty about what it is you're doing and why you're doing it that I think can carry you far. I think when a lot of people say, "I want to be the best," what they're really saying is, "I'm not okay with who I am." and I want and being the best will make everybody like me, and like I think there's something different that I think the average person is communicating when they say I want to be the best. This was going to be my next question to you: is do you feel like you had high self-esteem even when you were playing 25 and L?
Yeah, no, definitely. I've always been very sure of myself. I reckon I have a theory, which obviously I can't really test, that my parents tricked me into having really high self-esteem. Just they just always used to tell me that I was like, confident, natural leader, march to the beat of my own drum. And I'm not sure if that was always true, or they just said it enough times that I internalized it and believed it. And then and then at a certain point, I was just like, I've been like, I've been doing this as like a fake it till you make it thing for so long that it's become natural. But like, I remember having this moment at like 14 or something, and I was like, I'm not sure. Like, I was like, am I an anxious teenager, or have they been lying to me? Like, what's up with this? Like,
I mean,
um,
I think I have kids. I don't. I'm assuming you don't, but I have kids, and I can say that I think one of the best jobs as a kid is to speak positively to the qualities of your kid, because I do think one of the things that carries you the furthest through life is high self-esteem. And there's a really big difference between saying like I want to be the best and I believe in myself to do it. And there's a difference when if you ask people genuinely, do you want to be the best? Like, is that actually what you want? Like, if you were totally okay with yourself and you didn't need to prove anything, would you want to be the best? Some people would still want to be the best. Like some people who have high regard of themselves, high self-esteem, would naturally actually still want to be the best. Many people would not. Many people would not care. Many people, if they just felt good about who they were, and then you ask them what do you want, they just be like, no, I just want to like live my life and like have a job that pays me money and like have people who love me. And and everyone's just different in that sense. But I think the thing that's different is usually there's actually, in my experience, no greater mark of like struggling to succeed than low self-esteem. And so typically when I from a poker coaching standpoint, if I'm coaching poker, not mental game, but poker, if someone's like, I want to be the best, and I get this scent of like, this is just low self esteem, what this actually means is you're actually not going to work that hard. You're actually not going to like, and that sounds extremely mind numbing and difficult as a poker coach. Like, that sounds like a very difficult position. As a poker coach, as a mental game coach, it's exactly what I signed up for, so it's totally different. But
yeah, for me, I think one thing looking back on it, which was probably a good sign, was that I saw it more as a competition against myself than like against everyone else. I kind of had this view of there's a quote from Socrates. I hope I'm on this quote, but I'm pretty sure it is. Where it's like it's a shame for man not to see himself at his peak in his lifetime. Um, and like I mean, it, that quote secured him being all the statues and drawings of him making him a big buff dude for his whole life because people assumed it was a purely athletic thing. But I think I think depending on who you are and like in what you want to be honest about, like what respect, like what aspect of your life does it most value you to like see to its ends. And I think it can be I mean, for me at least, I just didn't want to I didn't want to leave those things unanswered. I was like, I really did want to, I was like, okay, at least in this regard. I mean, I guess this is just ambition by another name. But I was like, yeah, I really felt the need to see how like, how far I could push myself there. Um, like, and I didn't want to make excuses or anything. I was just like, I just want to, because like, um, especially like like having ADHD. I remember just being so scared of getting like diagnosed with that for so long because I was like, oh, like I'm just like I was like, I really don't want to use it as an excuse. I really don't want to be like, oh, I could be so good, but studying for me is so much harder than everyone else. And it's like, no, I've had I had so many privileges that lots of other people don't. And then it's also like I'm smart enough to find a way around this shit. Like I can, there's like like ADHD does make looking at aggregate reports fucking mind numbing, and I take in no information. But like there are lots of other ways where I can, there are ways that I can sit down and like study a solver and get like, and sit there for like hours upon hours upon hours and just like, and it doesn't feel like work at all to me because I've like, made it more engaging for myself. Um, and so yeah, no, I just want to see. I was like, well, if I miss out on being like, if I miss out on like getting quite to the top because of ADHD, then I still want to see how far I could have got and like not be like, oh, like what's the point of even trying? I got dealt a bad
yeah,
hand.
yeah. Do you feel pressure to maintain that title?
Yeah, no, definitely. Because when well, I mean, obviously, like that there's an element of variance over these things. That's like, you know, but like I feel a lot of pressure to perform well in it. Um, like I mean, this year I was genuinely kind of like unfocused and sort of like since the end of the World Championship, I was sort of coasting for a while. Um, yeah, but like it was funny. I just saw the dates of it. Uh, I saw the dates of it get floated around, and yeah, Kaki was like, "Oh yeah, we'll probably do something like around November." The moment I saw that, I was like, "Okay, I need to sharpen the fuck up." Like I haven't been like battling. I hadn't been battling too much all year, and then was immediately just like it's like messaging people like Kevin and Beppa or whoever was around, and it's like, come on, play. Just need to get some reps in. I've been playing been playing too many of these ridiculous games. I need to get back to some of this free-handed no ante like bread and butter. Like, get my feel for that back. Yeah, it was like. Yeah, it's funny. Like I could just feel it in the moment, like just reading that when it was going to be back on. I was like, oh yes, like let's fucking go. Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously, like someone, if someone runs well and I run badly, then like I can't do anything about that. But like everything within my control, like if I like perform badly and like I tilt off and like punt off a bunch of irons, um, or like I don't know, or like maybe not even in as dramatic a fashion. If I'm just like sloppy and like making a bunch of mistakes that I wouldn't usually, then I'd be really disappointed. I want to, yeah, I want to put up a fight, and yeah, Decky will finally have to admit that I'm the king if I win 2 years in a row. Like
Yeah.
it's hurt him so much. He hates the way I play poker. Like he plays such solid, respectable poker every fucking hand, and then like I'll just talk to him about and his exploits are like so there ain't no house of cards over there. Like they're so they're such a sure fucking thing. And then I'll just wind him up. I'll just be like, I remember after championships, we were going over a few hands, and I was like, there was one hand where I was like, like basically like I think I like check raised barreled with a sat, and then the river the flush came in, and I block bet, and he shoved over the top. And and I was like, yeah, I was thinking about RNGing this one, and I was like, but this is the kind of spot you get to turn aces into a bluff, and I don't think you can resist that. You fucking solver nerd, you just wanted to show off.
Yeah, totally. That's so good.
He was so mad. He was just like, I RNG'd. I was like, who won the hand?
Did you though?
I still to this day don't believe he RNG'd, and I just don't think he wants to admit it. But
yeah. That's the short we're making from this interview. Tag him.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah,
oh my, he hates this story. He hates it. Like he gets so annoyed by it.
Oh, that's funny. Well, Owen, this was a great conversation. What are you up to next? Plug anything that you wish to plug.
Yeah, so me and Yuri are gonna be we're releasing the mid stakes we're gonna release mid stakes group for Guerilla. We've had a lot of people who've asked us to do coaching for mid stakes guys over the years, but hasn't really been viable. So between like me, him, and Bart, we're gonna be putting together a course, and also essentially something which we're hoping it's going to do is because I'm going to be also like running the high stakes one. Is essentially just going to be my baby. Is like we're trying to take like we're going to try and find some guys who like talented and have really good instincts, but we need to get their like fundamentals up to a certain level, and their like ability to speak about and understand the game before they can make the most of working in like the high stakes CFP environment with like people like myself, like Yuri and Duty and some others. But yeah, so really excited about that. Like applications now open on the website. Yeah, it's not going to be CFP, just like a one-time fee. But yeah, hoping to put that out and make something really cool for people to enjoy.
It's awesome. We'll make sure to have a link below. But thank you so much for doing this, man. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, no worries,
and
great time.
yeah, we'll have to do it again sometime.
Sure.